afterwards. All right, so we just did a quick review of everything we've learned so far, and I call this graphing method number 2 because graphing method number 1 is using y is equal to mx plus b. So if you have an equation in y is equal to mx plus b form, it's very easy to graph using the y-intercept and then the slope and then counting your rise and your run. Now, another way to graph a line is by using a table of values. And this may be something you're somewhat familiar with from previous years, so it might not be brand new, but we're going to go through 3 examples to learn how to do this exactly. So for question number 1, I have the equation y is equal to negative 3x plus 4. And a table of values is basically this little t-chart, a little t-chart where you have x on the left-hand side and you have y on the right-hand side. And now sometimes the x values are going to be given to you, sometimes they may not be given to you, and you're going to have to create an equation, a table of values all by yourself. My helpful advice to you is whenever you have just a regular question where there are no fractions or anything like that, the numbers I always pick are -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And the reason I pick these numbers is because they're very small and there are a couple of negatives and a couple of positives. So you kind of cover everything. Okay, so let's try this question. How exactly are we going to work through it? What we're going to do is for every single x value, I'm going to substitute it into the equation and I'm going to solve. So my equation is y is equal to negative 3x plus 4, and my very first x value is -2. So for the very first part, and I just have a little box over here for rough work, so it's just going to be y is equal to -3 bracket -2 plus 4. And I know you're never supposed to work sideways, but because this is rough work, I'm not really marking it and I want to save space, I'm just going to work sideways anyways. And I'm going to solve this. So -3 times -2 is +6, and +6 plus 4 is the number 10. So this number here is going to be a 10. And you basically do this for every single one of your x values. So I'll do the next one with you and then you guys can try the rest on your own. Y is equal to -3 because that's part of the equation. Your next x value is -1. So now you're going to be putting that into this x over here. Whoops. Okay, so it's going to be -3 times -1 plus 4. -3 times -1 is +3, and +3 plus 4 is 7. Does this make sense, you guys? Okay, great. Do the next 3. I'll do them silently up here and you can check your work. I like that we're starting off with this lesson because it's nice and simple, and that's good. Do we print this or do it on a scrap piece of paper? Completely up to you. I have posted it. I mean, the formatting's a little off, but the questions are all there. So if you wanted to print it, you definitely could, or you could just get a scrap piece of paper and then I'm going to post these answers so you could just print off the answers. Completely up to you. All right, that's my indication that you guys are good to go. So now that we have our table of values, these are just points that we're going to now put on our graph. So the first one is going to be -2, 10, which is going to go up here. -1, 7. Now, if you're doing this in a scrap piece of paper, it might be a little bit harder because you don't have a grid, so it'll take you a while to do the grid. If you have a printer and you can print off the sheet, it just makes it a little bit easier. But if you don't have a printer, it's not a big deal. Maybe you could just do the grid part later and then you can draw it out properly. Okay. So remember, you're going to plot all your points and you're going to make sure that your line goes through every single one of them. and then you have arrows on both sides of your line because it indicates that the line is going on forever. And in this case, because we have an equation, we're also going to label our line with the equation. So it's going to be y is equal to negative 3x plus 4. When do you use this method? Well, if I just say graph y is equal to negative 3x plus 4, do you think this method is the most efficient way to graph this? Or do you think because it's already in y is equal to mx plus b, that would have been faster? I guess it's personal preference. If I don't force you to use a way, you could have used y is equal to mx plus b. So remember, the positive 4 is your y-intercept, which is this point right here. So this positive 4 is this point right here. And the negative 3, you're just going to go negative 3 over 1. Your rise is going down and your run is going to the right. So you go down 3, 1 to the right, down 3, 1 to the right, et cetera, et cetera. I think probably it would have been faster to graph it that way. But like I said, it's personal preference, or I might force you to graph it this way, right? I might say, create a table of values to graph this, and then you have no choice. You have to do this method. All right, I think you guys all have a pretty good understanding of this. So let's go ahead and try question number 2. Question number 2 is different and a little bit more difficult because it has a fraction. And I've written a helpful note. It says, when dealing with fractions and equations, choose tables of value or table values that are multiples of the denominator. This will eliminate the fraction. So what exactly is meant by that? Let me illustrate. So see how our fraction is negative 1 over 4 and the denominator is a 4. In order for us to make this question easier, when I pick my x values, I am going to pick numbers that are multiples of 4. So basically anything in the 4 times multiplication table, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, any one of those numbers, that is what you're going to be picking in your x values. And the reason we do that is because when you do this, your y values will be nice whole numbers. You won't have to deal with fractions. Okay, so let's try this question and see how it works. Again, I'm going to do the same thing I did before. The first one is negative. Oh, I don't like that it's so thin. I changed it before. Okay, so the first is negative 8, and I'm basically going to be putting that into this x over here. And I'm going to show you just my rough work on the side, which is going to be y is equal to negative 1 over 4 times negative 8 minus 2. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so I can just show one other step. So negative 1 over 4 times negative 8 minus 2. Okay, now we got to think about this. Negative 1 over 4 times negative 8. Negative 1 over 4 times negative 8. That's like saying negative 1 times negative 8 is 8 over 4. And that just gives me a whole number of 2. So go to the side, try it out and see if it makes sense. But when you're multiplying a fraction with a whole number, it's kind of like saying negative 1 over 4 times negative 8 over 1. Multiply the numerators. So cross multiplication. Oh, no cross multiplication, just numerators multiplication. So negative 1 times negative 8 is 8. 4 times 1 is 4. 8 divided by 4 is 2. So what this is going to just be 2 minus 2, which is equal to 0. Good. Cross reduction, that's more like it. Yes. All right, let's try the next one. So y is equal to negative 1 over 4 times negative 4 minus 2. What do you guys think negative 1 over 4 times negative 4 over 1 is going to give us? Multiply the numerators. Negative 1 times negative 4 is 4. 4 times 4 is 4. And so this is going to reduce to give us just the number 1. Good job, Gabriel. And let me know if this doesn't make sense to you and if you want more explanation. So this is just like saying 1 minus 2, which is negative 1. Easy. I'm glad to hear that. Let's keep going. I love when there's a 0 because a 0 just means everything disappears. So -1/4 times 0 is just 0. 0 minus 2 is going to give me a -2. Sorry. And hopefully you guys kind of can see the pattern now, right? It seems like we're just going down by ones. We started at 0, then it was -1, then it was -2. We can kind of guess what the next one would be. You would think it's -3. Yeah, so let's confirm that by doing the work. -1/4 times 4 minus 2. -1/4 times 4. Go to the side, try it out. It would just give you -4/4, which is just -1 minus 2, which is -3. And then the next one should give us a -4. I'll move that over, and I will also move all of this over. I need more. Okay, so the last one is going to be y is equal to -1/4 times 8 minus 2. That's just -2 minus 2, which is just -4. I wonder why it keeps erasing every time I do that. So weird. All right, so we have all of our points now. Let's go ahead and graph them on our grid. We have -8, 0, which will be there. Then we have -4, -1, which would be there. 0, -2 there. 4, -3. And then 8, -4. You can see everything is lined up nicely. By the way, you could have used y is equal to mx plus b for this, because look, your b is just -2, which we've drawn there. And a slope of -1/4 just means you're going to rise 1 unit down and you're going to move 4 units to the right, or the other way to think about it is 1 over -4. So you're going to rise up 1, or you're going to run 4 units to the left. Okay, so again, which way is easier? I would say y is equal to mx plus b is probably easier and faster. And it's a great way for you to check your work. But this question was asking us to do it using a table of values, so we had no choice. Oh dear. Yes. And then because we have an equation, we are going to label it here as well. Y is equal to -1/4x minus 2. All right, so question number 3 is graph 10x minus 5y is equal to -25. Now, this question is weird because it's not in y is equal to something form. And in all the other questions, when it was in y is equal to blah, 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 it was really, really easy to figure out the rest of it. So what we're going to do for this question is we're actually going to be changing it to a form where it's y is equal to blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to take my question, which is 10. There we go. 10x minus 5y is equal to -25. And I'm going to rearrange it and solve for y. So basically what this means is I want y to stay on the left-hand side and everything else to move over to the other side. So we're going to have -5y. And you guys are all good at this because we've all finished the equations unit. So I know you remember how to do this. I'm going to move the 10x to the other side. It's going to become -10x. And then the -25 stays where it is. Now, there's a -5 multiplied to the y. This means in order for me to get rid of it, I have to divide every single side by -5. So what's that going to look like? It's going to be divide this by -5, divide this by -5, divide this by -5. -5 divided by -5 is just 1, which is great. That's what we want. -10 divided by -5 is 2x. And -25 divided by -5 is going to be -5. And look how much easier this question is. 10x minus 5y is equal to -25 was tricky. But now that we've rearranged it so that it's y is equal to 2x minus 5, the question becomes so much easier. Because this question doesn't have any fractions, I just chose my usual -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And now I'm going to do the same thing I did for the previous two questions. I'm going to take each one of my x's and I'm going to be putting it into my equation. So Erie just pointed out that this should be a +5. That was my mistake. Thank you so much. Okay, so now I'm ready to put in all of my x values. It's going to be y is equal to, and if you know what you're doing, you can just kind of tune me out and go ahead and work ahead, because like I said, this is just like the first one. So y is equal to 2 times -2 plus 5, which will just be -4 plus 5, which will give me a 1. The next one is y is equal to 2 times -1 plus 5, which will be -2 plus 5, which is going to be a 3. Y is equal to 2 times 0 plus 5, which will just be a 5. You guys can probably see the trend now. This will be a 7. And the last one will be, Shams, you got it right. It would be a 9. Okay, and then to finish off this question, let us graph. So -2, 1 would be up here. -1, 3 would be there. 0, 5 would be there. 1, 7 would be there. And 2, 9 would be there. Okay, now you're going to watch me struggle. I'm going to pause. I have succeeded. I'm going to label this. It doesn't matter. You can label it the original or the rearranged. I'm just going to go ahead and label it y is equal to 2x plus 5. Okay, pause. I'll give you guys a couple of seconds to catch up. So you guys, what I've done is I've shown you one type of every question of a table of values, one where it's super straightforward and simple, one with a fraction, and a third one where you're going to have to rearrange it so it's y is equal to blah, blah, blah. Your homework for this part, I've tried to make the homework kind of fun, so you're not just staring at textbook questions. But that being said, there are no textbook questions for this. There is this sheet, which is called Handout C Table of Values. The instructions say complete the table, then plot the points, complete the graph by drawing a line through the points. All lines will be diagonal. So for the first 3 questions, they give you all of the points and you're just practicing graphing. And then for all the rest, they give you your x values and you're going to have to figure out the y values using the equation, and you're going to have to graph. The solutions to this will be posted on Brightspace. I didn't want you to have to print out the solutions or anything like that. So I'm just going to upload them on Brightspace and then you can check your work with that. The second sheet you're going to do is this one here. It says complete each table with ordered pairs that satisfy the given function, which is a word you may not have heard about, but it's just the equation. You must find 4 pairs that fit on the provided axes and can only use integer values, and plot the points, connect them with a line and marking arrows. So basically what we just did is what you're going to do. Be careful of question number 4. So I'll point out the ones where you should just pay attention to it a little bit extra. So pay attention to question number 4. It is 1 with a fraction. So this is kind of like saying y is equal to 1 over 4x minus 3. So you want to make sure the numbers you pick for your x, for your chart, are values related to 4. So I would maybe pick -8, I would pick -4, I would pick 4, and I would pick 8. What other questions? So also be mindful of question 5, look at the denominator. Be mindful of question 6, look at the denominator. For question 6, because it's 5, you just pick multiples of 5. So -10, -5, 5, and 10. Or even if you don't want to do that, because really there's no rule, right? You could pick anything you want. You could also pick, although, oh, this only goes to 10. Never mind. You're kind of limited because it only goes to 10. So you kind of would have to pick just -10, -5, 5, and 10. But if you weren't limited, you could pick 20, 30, 40, it doesn't matter. Okay, and then questions 7 and 8 are pretty straightforward. Actually, question 7 will be interesting because there's no y value. So try this. I won't reveal the answer. I'll let you think about it a little bit. And that's it. So I think the hardest one in this is actually question number 7. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording.